Welcome, it's Mud Dog with the TexasSpaceNavy, bringing you another Star Citizen video. Today we're going to talk about the Roadmap Roundup and Xenothreat Postmordem. So the Roadmap Roundup, March 10th, 2021. In the progress tracker, they have weapon misfire and wear, and FPS weapon overheat. These two deliverables were originally slated to start work in the back half of 2021. However, it was decided to give more resources, time, and priority to the upcoming salvage feature, pushing these deliverables back to 2022. Fuel scooping. A higher priority was given to overhaul of ship multifunction displays in 2021. Therefore, the fuel scooping feature is now slated to start work in 2022. The deliverable will appear again in the future when additional quarters are revealed. Anti-personnel turrets. Due to the reallocation of resources on the weapon content team, this deliverable was deprioritized in favor of other weapons and tools in 2021. Therefore, we have removed it from the progress tracker. So, as you guys know, nothing new here. They're delaying and bumping things back once again. Delay, 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 bump, bump, bump. Seems like they offer up a lot of things for a quarter and then decide, oh, well, we'll just push back half of them or a third of them, or you get the idea. It's kind of frustrating from our point of view, but, you know, they're trying to go in the most logical, what makes the most logical sense, and those priorities will change depending on where they are with other priorities as well. So we do need to try to understand some of that. Now, in the release view, the Stanton System Polish, this deliverable has successfully passed its final review. For this reason, we have updated the label on this card to Committed and changed its color to blue. Physical Inventory. This deliverable has been renamed to Personal Inventory in order to more accurately describe the scope of this feature as outlined in the most recent episode of Calling All Devs. So yeah, this is going to be what you can carry on your person. As we know right now, you can carry everything you own. But here soon, very, very soon, that won't be the case. The following deliverables have been added to the release view. Missions. Timed multi-drop deliveries. Implement timed delivery missions with multiple drops and varied timers. This will require players to prioritize drops and plan routes to ensure all packages are delivered on time. These missions will vary between local drops and long-distance deliveries. Very cool idea. I like that they're bringing this into the game. Missions, quantum-sensitive deliveries. Implement cargo missions that will require players to be extra careful with their deliveries and prohibit use of quantum drives. So that also is pretty interesting, new wrinkle in the cargo gameplay or delivery gameplay. So there's a lot of other stuff that is on the updated roadmap that they have, I guess, updated in some way or another. So you definitely want to check that out. I can go through a small list here on our Discord. As you can see, they have work started on Jump Point Spacescaping, Plan Ed and Soul Ed support, Dynamic Objects presets, Aceto Station, Aegis Idris, Chapter 12. This is all for Squadron 42, it looks like. And you can kind of get the idea here of all the different things that they've been working on. The whole C is down here as well. They're changing some stuff over from the old XML system to the data core. And then they have work completed on quite a few other things here as well, including the Javelin Destroyer. Will we see it? Who knows? The Vandal Fleet looks like that is done as well. So maybe we'll actually get to see some of the updated Vandal ships if we're lucky. Probably not. Let's go over to Xenothreat Postmordem and see what we have here. So here's the Xenothreat Postmortem. On February 4th, 2021, we launched Alpha 3.12.1 Assault on Stanton, which introduced the first dynamic event in the Star Citizen universe. The following is a postmortem from the senior developers themselves, detailing what was delivered and their thoughts on how it went. Now, this is a fairly long article. I don't know if you want me to read the whole thing. What went well? The initial design for Xenothreat was put together by Luke Presley and I, Tony Z. We both have a strong working knowledge of the current state of the game, and after a few iterations, the final pitch felt solid and realistic. There was a good amount of documentation for how the event would run, including a high-level breakdown of how to play it, what enemies would spawn, and how the rewards would work, and how to test the screen overrides. This was all maintained throughout development, which worked as quick reference for QA and other departments. After somewhat clunky start, the feedback loop on Xenothreat ended up being pretty well-oiled machine. The process of gathering feedback from the PTU via the player experience team and feedback reports, getting bugs in with the appropriate labels, and reviewing and triaging new bugs each day to get priority calls ended up being a very clean process. We made a call later in the process to have QA enter tracking tasks in Jira as soon as the feedback report came in, instead of waiting for internal reproductions. This allowed for more rapid iteration, so sometimes the developers were able to address the feedback even before QA got a chance to enter the proper bug for it. So that was pretty neat. Regarding the event itself, there were a number of features that were positively received. The shared income pool, social style distribution of tasks and gameplay types, and work together nature of the cargo unloading were immensely popular with the community. This by itself was a huge part of a positive reception. Also, when everything was working smoothly, the entire feel and look was stunning. We are very happy with how the balance of design, VFX, and SFX came together. We created a strike team dedicated to making the combat feel great, which made quick iteration more viable. The narrative that went along with this release was also quite cool, and the Xenothreat commander was effective and intimidating. Other aspects of the event we found successful were large in-game income opportunities for players in all phases. FPS pirates populating the wreck sites in Phase 2, and team-oriented payout style. And then many players appreciated the bonus of getting paid very well for doing the event in all phases. This further incentivized continued play and added replayability. Although there were some issues with the FPS AI characters, their general presence made going through the wreck sites more interesting for players and added to a varied style of gameplay. There were some detractors who wanted more income per box in a more individualized payout system, but there were far more who liked the team-oriented style of payout, with many saying it encouraged cooperation. I agree with that. While it was unfortunate we weren't able to launch it at the end of the year, the decision to delay the event until 2021 benefited it massively. The difference between what we would have released before Christmas and what we did release are night and day when it comes to stability, performance, and quality of life. It was a great decision by the executive team. What didn't go so well? Dynamic events are a huge feat of management, as their delivery relies on multiple departments. They require one owner with a clear vision and knowledge of all aspects to be on hand to answer questions and address feedback. In order to give Xenothreat the attention it required and deserved, a lot of folks had to juggle responsibilities. This type of thing can easily lead to other responsibilities sliding. If events of this scale are required several times a year, they cannot just be absorbed by an existing team, as their other responsibilities can suffer. The dialogue added a lot to the mission, but getting it in was a very big undertaking with a long lead times to deliver it and the mission triggers. There was insufficient time to get the actual lines into fully functioning mission and iterate in appropriate changes. We did get placeholder lines in earlier, but due to the feature that triggered them still not being fully functioning and the mission not being completely finished, it was difficult to actually review them in this situation. In the past, we have used programs like Visio to create flows of what lines trigger when and what ordering should occur. We didn't have time to do this for Xenothreat, so dialogue was implemented straight into the logic. This made the process more ad hoc, and extra flow graph planning would have eased the process of designing the logic to support the dialogue triggers. Unsurprisingly, much of the dialogue triggering had to be heavily woven into the mission logic, for it to be fired at the right time, which meant that efforts to review the dialogue in context were unrealistic even if everything had been working and the mission finished with or when placeholder lines were delivered. I think we need to be more considerate about expectations on reviewing dialogue in the mix when that mix only really plays out during QA, PTU, and Evocati playtest. More time spent prototyping would have been extremely beneficial, particularly for the Starfarer derelicts, as the feature requirements changed in the middle of development. Requests were made to add gravity to the interiors and to add targeting capability and UI support. We ended up shipping with one less version of the Starfarer derelicts than originally planned due to the issues with 0G. More prototyping would have also enabled us to better understand what balance was required to get to the point where we knew the combat worked as intended. There were times that the feedback could be red herrings, such as server performance being a cause instead of actual balance issue. This sometimes made it difficult to pinpoint where problems were occurring without extensive testing to verify. Internal testing was sometimes especially challenging due to the difficulty of reproduction, breadth, and repro steps, large number of testers required, and time zone differences. Sometimes the developers would get bugs without repro steps that they were unable to reproduce internally, while other times the repro steps would be incredibly long and would take a massive amount of time to test. We need to be able to test the mission more easily so we can get better understanding of the state of it at any given time. Later in development, we added new tools to bypass select aspects of the mission and modify internal parameters to help expedite the testing process. This should have been done earlier. There was a lot of feedback from our community on aspects of the event that could have been better. Players weren't made aware of how long Phase 3 would remain active and were surprised when it came to an end. Better information to manage expectations would have improved the situation. Event terminology regarding phases was confusing at times, with differences between how things were referred to internally and what was described to backers on Spectrum's feedback threads. We knew from the beginning that performance would be a limiting factor, and that meant that we wouldn't be able to deliver a sufficient number of enemies to generate the level of challenge that we actually wanted in certain situations. As a result, some players found the Idris far too easy to kill, and when this happened, it derailed Phase 3 significantly. With the right loadouts, Typhoon torpedoes, a single retaliator could drop the shields of an Idris and multiple players could kill it in just a few minutes. Rapid mission finishing and long cooldown meant players trying to do the mission struggled to find a server with it active, and if they did, get there in time to participate. In addition, the Idris offered almost no threat to players even if they didn't kill it quickly, it mostly acting as a bullet sponge, with many players mentioning it holding still and continuously firing. We ended up killing it pretty fast, so I know that was an issue. Hostility, detection, and crime stat determination are still too simplistic, with no modifier for shared mission participants, whether the ship hit, is targeted, or any link to targeting at all. With so many ships in close proximity in a complex scenario, friendly fire was frequent and often resulted in players accidentally getting a crime stat, being dumped from the mission, and sent to prison upon death. Yeah, that sucked for a lot of people. While we wanted to allow players complete freedom to choose which side to support, there was insufficient time. This caused problems when inevitably many PvP-oriented players took it upon themselves to attack players attempting the event. This was most prevalent in Phase 2, since the event didn't support this. However, there were few ways for the mission participants to prevent or counter this, resulting in some strong opinions on either side. Most players just left those servers to find one without PvP. On our end, we're thinking about how we can support both playstyles. Many players mentioned poor client frame rate during both combat phases. In addition, there were numerous reports of mission-critical assets loading slowly, including wreck sites, supply ships, Xenothreat fighters, and FPS AI, which loaded in after players started clearing cargo at times. Yeah, that's not good either. As opposed to Phase 2, Phase 3 was singularly focused on ship combat. This meant that alternative playstyles, such such as salvage and FPS combat, were not able to contribute, which caused considerable consternation and frustration among some players. Players have very limited and shallow friend or foe identification systems, with red being either directly hostile to the player or someone with a crime stat, and blue representing everyone else. There's no way for players to tell who is on the mission, who is aggressively or hostile to others without a comm array, and often who is in their party, as the party markers are not always reliable. This was most critical on foot in the wreck, when no identification was used at all, and hostile NPCs, hostile players, and cooperative players on the mission all appeared identically. Yes, even inside your own party, you can't tell the difference. So sometimes the IDs don't show up, so that's still a big issue. Now, AI fighters wiggled, warped, teleported, flew erratically, and generally offered no threat, with players frequently calling them cannon fodder. In addition, players frequently mentioned how low their numbers seemed, limiting the sense of danger. AI fighters also seemed to lack aggressive behaviors, such as targeting cargo ships or bombers, and sometimes ignored incoming damage in the process. Now, I know that in our run, or a few runs, they would target the cargo ships. That was something that definitely happened on occasion. So I'm not sure if they've got all the right information here. Although some players commented that it was far better than previous patches, EVA remains an issue, especially on physics grid transitions, like entering and exiting a ship, with players frequently taking damage or even dying. Specifically reported were bad transitions that involve players falling over and or taking damage, generally sloppy and imprecise motion in flight, and awkward loss of control when bumping into objects. Torpedo spam dominated Phase 3 and was further encouraged by massive payouts for hits. The Idrises often failed to properly counter them, and the simplistic nature of their use, lock, launch, done, contributed heavily to the easy feeling of Phase 3. The law and hostility systems need significant work, especially with regards to potentially friendly fire and accidental damage. Included in this are how and why we apply a crime stat, how charges are pressed, how hostility is determined, and through discussion of how to better identify friends and foes. That should include distinction and markers for players on the mission, counter-mission players if appropriate, aggressive players, hostile players, criminals, and factions where appropriate. What we'll do differently to improve in the future. There are several issues called out above that we are actively discussing and plan to address for future events. Over the coming weeks, we'll look at each piece of feedback and turn and discern how to address them, which teams will work on them, and where they fit into the schedule. Issues with the performance, AI, PvP design, and the law system are at the forefront of our minds to ensure that these events are as good as they can be. And that was from Tony Zervik, the Persistent Universe game director. Now, they have AI team in here. They also have the vehicle experience team. Definitely recommend you go and check this out. Performance. I just wanted to give you the big overview that Tony Z had written to the community about Xenothreat's Postmordem and how he felt the event went. This is their first big event. I think it went fairly well. Yes, there's still a lot of bugs that need to be cleaned up. Phase 3 was too quick for sure. So definitely some things could be improved. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Guys, if you liked me going over Xenothreat and the roadmap roundup, make sure you hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't subscribed to the channel. I appreciate everybody that's been tuning in as of late. You guys are really awesome for watching the videos. And I've got a backlog of videos to do. I just don't have enough time to do them all. So I'm going to try to get them out as quickly as I can for you guys. I did try to solo an Idris earlier, but somebody jumped in and ruined that whole mission for me. So I don't have a good video of it. Maybe I can get that out to you guys here in the next few days or weeks. I'm Mud Dog with the Texas Space Navy, and I'll see you out in the verse.